Please join me in welcoming on stage the one and only technical evangelist, Lynn Allen, to share more on AutoCAD's new features for 2015. Please welcome Lynn.
Welcome. My name is Lynn Allen, as was mentioned, and if you have used AutoCAD for any length of time and you know me, it's probably from my AutoCAD expertise. So if the rest of the day you heard about BIM and we didn't convince you to go to BIM, or we didn't convince you the importance of digital prototyping, and you're still rebelling and you're still using AutoCAD, you are in the right spot. And let's face it, even if you have made the move to BIM or some of the more advanced technologies, you probably are still end up using AutoCAD at some point. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the latest features inside of 2015, a few of the features inside of 2014, and we're supposed to have booklets. Tips and tricks booklets. Dale's going to go figure that out now, that go with the class. So you don't have to remember anything because it's been a long day and you've been listening all day. So we don't want you to have to remember anything else. So I also want to kind of talk to you about the importance of staying current regardless of the Autodesk product that you have. Just some things to think about reasons to stay current and not to lag too far behind. Those of you who are on 2010, 11, 12, definitely I would encourage you to upgrade. Just some things to think about. The companies that stay current have the opportunity to win more proposals than those who don't. Because if somebody mandates AutoCAD DWG files on a specific release of the software and you don't have that, that gives you one more thing in life to worry about and cuts you out of those share of proposals. It means you have to make more money on proposals that are on the older releases, right? Also, companies that are seen as being, that stay current are seen as being more progressive. And when you're trying to, once again, win a proposal over, you always want to be the progressive company because that just always seems a little more like you're going to be able to deliver on what they want. And besides, I always want to work for a progressive company. Don't you want to work for a progressive company? Because they have a tendency to be more successful. And by staying current, you give your employees the best tools, the most recent tools, and more tools than if you don't stay current. So I'm going to show you some of the features in the latest couple of releases, and I'll do my part to try to convince you that you want some of those tools. So AutoCAD 2015, well actually every release of AutoCAD has a group at Autodesk that's completely focused on trying to decide what's going to go in that release of AutoCAD. And then there's a theme for each of the AutoCADs. You can see over the last few releases the different themes that we had. And this last release of AutoCAD was really focused on boosting productivity. So you'll see some big features that are wrapped around geolocate or around reality capture, but you'll also see a lot of the everyday tools, which are always my favorite. Because if you can remove one step from something that you do all day long in AutoCAD, to me that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. So you'll see some changes there as well. So how many of you are on AutoCAD 2015 or AutoCAD? Okay, good, that's good. All right, so one of the first things that you noticed when you loaded AutoCAD 2015, it's a very different color. It's kind of this cool gray color. And in case you were wondering why we decided to change the interface to make it this cool gray color, it's because statistics have shown that that white light that shines through into your eyes all day long versus the black is very hard on your eyes. And you'll actually see other Autodesk products that are moving to that cool gray color. You'll see other products that are not by Autodesk that are also moving to that cool gray color in an effort to reduce stress. And for those of you who use AutoCAD all day, you know how tired you are at the end of the day. Hopefully this will help you out a little bit. Now you'll see a few of the things that are on here that are a little bit different. There's the dark theme. You'll see the palettes are also dark. The status bar looks different than it used to. You can completely customize it and put the tools up there that you want. I'll show you how to do that. But you'll also notice that the layout tabs, it's a little hard to see on here, but the layout tabs are at the same level as the status bar. They usually used to take their own line, and I don't know if you're like me, but I'm very greedy with my screen real estate in AutoCAD, and I want as much room as possible for the drawing, so I love that change. That used to be one of my tips, to put the layout tabs down on the status bar, but now it happens automatically. And incidentally, if for some reason you don't like any of that gray color, you can put it back to the way it used to be, and I'll show you how to do that. For those of you who are rebels and don't like change, right? You'll also see when you select objects, it's very obvious. I love that. I don't know how many times I've been in a viewport in Paperspace and I've gone into a command and then went to select the objects only to realize I wasn't really in the viewport. So then I have to cancel out of the command. I have to double click again to get back into the viewport, and then I go back into the command. That kind of stuff drives me crazy. So that won't happen nearly as much now because it's going to be much more obvious when you're inside of that viewport, which is nice. And then we'll talk about line smoothing in just a little bit. I'll have a better example than this to show you, but also a really nice change to the graphics. All right, now I'm going to jump in. All right? Don't be quiet for me. Did we get the sound? Yes? Okay. I believe you. We'll find out, right? Okay. We'll find out when we get there. It's later. It's not the end of the world if we don't have it. All right, so this is just kind of, I'm going to talk about the user interface. I always start off by talking about the user interface, because if you don't like the user interface, you are not going to like AutoCAD 2015. I mean, it's just that simple. So let's take a look at some of these things. So let's go over here. So there's that gray interface. I told you if you didn't like it, you could easily change it. The easiest way, the fastest way to change it is just to click on options, and it will take you straight to the display page automatically. And here you can change it back to light. That's for those of you who don't like change. You know who you are. And because that's a little bit easier to see on the projector, I'm going to leave it with the white. But don't you do it. Give it a try. So I'll tell you, when I first saw the gray, I wasn't a fan. I used it for a week, and now I love it. So it's just one of those things that you need to really give it a good shot. So how many of you do not use the ribbon? Across the top, the ribbon. Do not use I always like to know who my ribbon rebels are. That's what I would call you. A few of you ribbon rebels. You put it back to AutoCAD Classic, right? So I will show you, because I don't want you to think that I'm hiding anything. Did I take it away? Where's my workspaces? Well, before I do that, let me show you how to customize the status bar. I've been doing too many classes on tips and tricks, and sometimes I do bad things to myself. You can absolutely customize this status bar, and if I click on the 3 lines in the lower right-hand corner, can you see those 3 lines? Internally at Autodesk, we call that the hamburger. If you want to be cool, you can call it the hamburger. I guess it kind of looks like a hamburger. But you'll see that everything that you could possibly want to display shows up there. For example, we don't have coordinates displaying anymore. If you're one of those people that likes to see the X, Y, Z coordinates, you might want to turn that back on. But you have complete control all of this. But what I wanted to tell you was that inside of AutoCAD 2015, the workspace of AutoCAD Classic is no longer in there by default. We're kind of pushing you to get you to use the ribbon. And the ribbon, when it first came out, I didn't like the ribbon. I didn't know why we had to use the ribbon, because when the ribbon first came out, it wasn't a very smart ribbon. But now the ribbon is super smart. And I don't know how I could live without it now. So if you tried it early on, you might want to give it another try, because the ribbon gets smarter and smarter. It's context sensitive. So for example, if I come up here and I select on this object, which is a PDF, but maybe I wouldn't know that by looking at it, you'll see the ribbon automatically changes to give me all the things it has to do with PDFs. I like that. You'll see if I come up here and I select this hatch, it'll automatically take me on the ribbon. Today. Don't mess with me. There we go. It's tired too. It's been sitting in classes all day today too. It'll take you to the tab on the ribbon that has to do with hatching. I love that. The commands I need right there. So I'm going to encourage you to try to give it another try. I use the ribbon all the time now. You'll also see, if you use the ribbon, a really nice feature that came out inside of AutoCAD 2015 are these galleries. You'll notice I clicked on Insert, and I have all the blocks that are in that drawing automatically show up on the ribbon. Love that. It's easy. I don't even have to think about it. It's all automatic. I think I've had too much coffee. We'll see how I do. What I want to do is I want to go grab this plant. I'm going to grab this plant and just drag and drop it into place, just to show you how easy it is to use these galleries that are automated. You will find these galleries underneath Annotate as well. Here they are in text styles. You'll see them in multi-leaders. You'll see them in tables. You'll see them in dimensions. And it all happens automatically, and it just gives you a little bit more visual feedback, which I absolutely love. All right. So one of the things that we don't like about using the ribbon at first is it might be hard for you to find commands. So I'm going to ask it for some help on a tool called Design Feed. I'm definitely going to take a second there. It's a little slow. This is where I need to do some tap dancing. It's all right, it's coming up. So you'll see in almost all of the help file commands, it has a tool called Find. And if you click on that tool, you will see that AutoCAD will show you in the ribbon exactly where the command is. So those of you who are ribbon rebels, because you don't want to have to learn where all the commands are, that should be very helpful to you, right? That's another reason to use it. So let's see, what else have we got? Let's just bounce back over here really quickly. We have the new tab. I'm going to show you that. The layout, I kind of showed you that a little bit. Okay, so let's jump back over. So another thing that you'll notice inside of AutoCAD 2015, when you pull up AutoCAD 2015, you get this tab called the New tab. It used to be when you opened AutoCAD, you got a big blank piece of paper, unless you had a default file set up or something like that. Well, now we get something kind of friendly to look at. Now, if you've been using AutoCAD for a long time, you probably don't need anything friendly, but you can imagine new users staring at that black blank screen, wondering what they should do. So this is friendly. You can start a new drawing. You can pin your drawings. You can edit existing drawings. You'll actually see that AutoCAD can talk to us with notifications through here. And you'll also see that there's a page called Learn, one called Create and one called Learn. It has some nice videos. It has some suggestions. And if you ever do work with somebody who's brand new to AutoCAD, it also has a nice point to the Hitchhiker's Guide to AutoCAD, which is a great way to start to use AutoCAD. It's kind of a fun example of how you can learn the basics of AutoCAD. So that's the New tab. If for some reason you don't like the New tab, you can turn that off as well. There's a system variable called New tab. You can just turn that off. So down here, you'll see that they've added a plus to the Layouts tab. You can very easily just click on that tab and it will add Layout 1 and Layout 2 and Layout 3, and it will keep going until you run out of room. When you run out of room, you can click on the arrows, but it's a very, very fast way to create new layouts, and you can go in and rename them anything that you want to. So these are just some small, tiny little things, but they add up to big things over time, things that we learn to appreciate inside of AutoCAD, making things just a little bit faster. All right, we went through that. So I'm sure for those of you who are ribbon rebels, you probably use the command line a lot. Actually, I still use the command line a lot, and any of you who've used AutoCAD for a long time probably use the command line a lot. Can't get away from it. It's really like the only program that I know that has a command line. In fact, when we wrote the AutoCAD for Mac version, it didn't have a command line in it to begin with. And everybody got so upset they didn't have a command line that they added into the Mac version of AutoCAD the only program that runs on a Mac that has a command line would be AutoCAD, because we're addicted to it. So let's just take a look at a couple of the features that came out in the last release. I wasn't able to be here last year, so I'm just going to show you a couple of them. So for example, as an AutoCAD user, we're not necessarily known for our amazing abilities to spell. So you'll see on here that if I type in line, I spell it wrong, it's okay. It's happy to figure out what I was trying to do. You'll also see that you can control the list of the things that you misspell. Maybe you misspell something and it can't figure it out. You can add your own lingo into AutoCAD now inside of AutoCAD 2014 and AutoCAD 2015. I always joke that on my phone, I spelled tomorrow incorrectly so many times because the I is right by the O that it actually added that to my dictionary. So now tomorrow will never come out correct on my dictionary. So you can totally control this inside of AutoCAD as well. It's very similar to editing the aliases inside of AutoCAD. So what else can I do? I can type in door. So there's no command in AutoCAD called a door, right? Is there? Unless you wrote one, there's not. But you'll see that with AutoCAD 2014 and 15 that it recognizes content. So if you had a block called door or a layer called door or a variety of other things, it will find it for you. So if you like to type instead of trying to go search for things, you can do so. Take a look at, you'll see that if I insert a block called door, it goes into the insert command, inserts a block. And if you were to click on the layer door, it would make that the current layer. So for some of you who prefer to type, just a little bit faster. You'll also see that AutoCAD is much better at doing searches for commands. If I type in plane, AutoCAD will look for any commands that start with plane, that end with plane, or a plane anywhere in the middle. Great for system variables where you only know part of it. You don't know the rest of it, it's going to find the system variable for you. So some nice changes there when it comes to the command line. So for those of you who are ribbon rebels, there's still some nice things in there for you. So file tabs came out in AutoCAD 2014. To be honest, I don't even know how we lived so long without them. And if you have 2014 or 15, you just use them because they're so easy to use and you're really comfortable with them. I just thought I'd show you a couple of things that you may not know that you can do with file tabs. So let's take a look. So file tabs are these guys up here, all the open drawings inside of my drawing file. You can see as I move my cursor over these, it shows you the various layouts, right? And if I move my cursor down to that layout, it gives me a nice preview, and you'll see that I can do a print or a plot without ever going to that drawing, which is nice. So without ever going there, I can actually very quickly print out that particular layout. But what I'd also like to show you is if I do a right click, some really great features in here. The basics, you can open a new file, you can open an existing file, but the ones I like are close all except this tab. That will save you some time. Shut down every single one of those files, give you a chance to save them if you need to, and then you're left in just the one file. Copy full file path. Not sure if you can imagine why you would want to do that. Have you ever wanted to send an email to somebody with a link to your file so they could get to it really easily? So you could copy the full file path, you could go into an email, you could paste it, and then somebody would be able to get to your drawing file really easily. And the last one up there is just for those of us that are not organized. Open file location. I don't know how many times you've done a save as just to figure out what directory you're in. Now you can just open the file location from here. So just some things, just some little things that are pretty powerful inside of AutoCAD 2014 and 15. All right. So inside of AutoCAD 2015, they did a lot of work on the line quality. Looks like that's not running. You should run. See if it shows you. If you work in 3D, it's going to be easier for you to see the objects that are in the front versus in the back. And all of us are very familiar with what happens when you have a line that's at 1 degree off from, for example, 90-degree angles, or 0, 180, 270. How it has that little jagged line, which in some cases is how we know it's not orthogonal, right? So we've put up with that little jagged line for a long time without ever thinking about it, right? We just assume that's the way it should be. In reality, with these days of graphics, we shouldn't be settling for any jagged lines. So you'll see 2015 has done a lot of work. I'm going to show you an example. Done a lot of work in that regards. So let's take a look at a drawing that will illustrate this really well. Let's go to... I zoom up on these lines. They look beautiful. They're just they're not orthogonal. They're just off by a few degrees. They're not jagged at all. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's turn this feature off. Smooth line display, we'll turn that off. And this is what we've been used to all of our lives with AutoCAD. Am I right? We just take it for granted. We know they print okay, but they don't look right on the screen. So with AutoCAD 2015, they give you an option to turn smooth line display on. It's on by default. You don't have to ever think about it. They allow you to turn it off for whatever reason known to man you want it to be there. I have not noticed any degradation in speed. I've never had a drawing file where I've turned it off, it's been any different. So I think it's just a really nice change inside of AutoCAD 2015. How many of you work in 3D in AutoCAD? Oh, that's good. That's what I like to see. If you can do 3D in AutoCAD, man, you can do anything, in my view. Actually, that's not right. Let's come over here. Just a second. So if you do any work in 3D, you're very familiar with 3D orbit. Many different ways you can orbit. But you'll notice when you go into 3D orbit, AutoCAD arbitrarily assigns a centroid to what you're going to be orbiting around. It takes a look at the center of the model, which is okay as long as you have a model right here. But if you have part of the model over here and part of the model over here, the center may not be what you want to rotate around. So 2015 allows you to pick where you want the center of that orbit to go. Those of you who work in 3D can totally appreciate this. Now there's a very long system variable that controls this, but I'm lazy. So I'm going to do a right click. I'm in the 3D orbit command. I'm going to do a right click, and I'm just going to turn off this enable orbit auto target. And when we find your booklets, which I'm hoping you will, then all this information is in there, so you don't have to remember exactly how you do that. So So now let's say I want to orbit around this pole right here. You'll notice I click on there and it rotates around it accordingly. Maybe I want to rotate around the stairs. Same deal. You click on the screen where you want the center to go. So much more control when you're doing 3D orbiting. So do any of you do model space viewports? The tiled viewports? Tiled viewports, some of you? All right, well, you're going to love the changes to that. So let's go over here to model. Model space viewports have been in AutoCAD for a long time. They're always tiled. You can't have one. They're not like paper space viewports, right? So in the upper left-hand corner of the screen in model space, if you haven't turned it off, you have these in-canvas viewport controls. These are great if you use 3D, not quite as valuable if you don't. You'll see there's 3 different columns. That last column allows you to control visual styles. The second column allows you to control the viewing angle. For example, we were just in 3D orbit, right? You can see that on there. And the first column is a little tiny dash, which once again, if you've had too much caffeine, you won't be able to click on. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll see that it allows you to set up your model space viewport configurations. And if you're a really good shot, this little tip for you, you can double click on that dash. Once again, you have to be very precise. If you double click on that dash, it gives you top view, side view, right view, front view. Sets it up for you, which is kind of nice. So these are model space viewports for those of you who don't work in 3D. They're all tiled right next to each other. And with 2015, it's so much easier to control the size and the way they look. We have these little handlebars that allow you to move them around. Inside of AutoCAD 2015, you can even grab the corner and move them all around. And you'll also see, if you have really, really good eyesight, there's a little tiny plus on each of these, which allows you to add viewports very, very quickly. These pluses allow you to, add them anywhere you want them to go, as you can see on there. Looks like I missed the plus, doesn't it? Let's try that again. There we go, that's better. So you can very quickly modify this any way that you want to work the way you want to work. So in the past, these tiled viewports have not been very friendly. They've been very strict and had to follow a certain number of rules. If you get too many together, you can drag them together to open it back up. Very, very simple, very basic, very straightforward. So let's see, we did that. Let's talk about the lassos. And we'll talk about the complex line types too. Let's close this guy, just in case. It's my last presentation of the year. I don't want anything catastrophic to happen. Is it this one? It is this one. So we talked about the fact that the lines are not jagged anymore. Another nice feature, if you work with complex line types, is you can grab an object that has a complex line type, and as you're creating complex line types and as you're editing them, you actually see them. Also, it seems pretty basic, like it should have been that way before, but we've always had just the dashes. We couldn't see the final line type until the very end. Pretty basic, but I'm really glad that they put that inside of the product. Very powerful. All right, let's take a look at lassos. So if you're in 2015, you may have discovered the lasso by accident. Yeah, there's a couple of you, yeah. You can turn the lasso off if you don't like it. It's pretty fun, though. Is this another time where I need to tap dance? Is it because it knows it's my last presentation in the year? Oh, that's not even the one I wanted. Sorry about that. I want this one. So I'm in this viewport. I know I'm in this viewport because it's very clear when I move my cursor over things that I'm in the viewport. That was the part I was talking about before. Now we all know if we go from left to right, we get a window, right? If you go from right to left, you get a crossing window. We all know that. Well now, with 2015, if you hold your mouse down, you get this lasso. If you go from left to right, it's a regular window. If you go from right to left, it's a crossing window, and so on and so forth. But it allows you to be very intricate about selecting objects. Like I said, many of you probably discovered that by accident by holding down your mouse key just a little bit longer than expected. You'll also see, if I go into lasso mode, if you take a look at the command line, it tells you what you're doing. Right now I'm in a crossing lasso. If I click it on again, it goes to a window lasso, so all the objects have to be completely inside. And then kind of a fun little trick, there's a fence lasso. So a fence lasso means you just move the line right through any objects that you want to select. Just another way to control what you're selecting inside of AutoCAD. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Those are the lassos. You can turn them off if you don't like them. Just about everything we add, we try to give you a way to turn them off if you're rebels and you don't like them. All right, we went through all that. So we added into command previews for fillet and for offset and for chamfer in the last few releases, and now they've added in even more command previews. So command previews allow you to see what you're going to get before you have to click on that last button to get it, only to find out that's not what you wanted and then having to do an undo. They added it into trim and extend and match properties, and my favorite, break. How many times have you gone into the break command and selected the object only to remember and realize that that's the first point in the break? And then you're like, oh, now I have to do F for first, and now you got to click it again. So now you're going to know exactly what's going on as you're selecting it. So this is going to be much more obvious. So let's take a look at some of these. Let's go back over here. And I'm going to make this really obvious, so I'm not going to do it the easy way. Let's go into extend first. I know that you can hit an enter to select all, but I'm going to be very precise here so you can see what's going on. Let's make that a boundary edge and that a boundary edge. Very obvious, right, what I selected. And here's the preview I'm talking about. You can really see what's going to happen before you select it. Just save you a little bit of time, a little fewer undos over time, which is always a good thing. One more. All right, let's go into trim. And I will be lazy this time. I'm going to hit an enter. Everything in the drawing will become a cutting edge, right? Even though nothing highlights, you just have to believe, to go with the force. So now you can see as I move my cursor around, it's showing you the ones that will be deleted. The little X there, that's a cursor badge. You'll see a lot of cursor badges inside of AutoCAD 2015, kind of helping you out as you're drawing so you know what you're doing. Maybe I want to delete that and that. You'll see if I come over here, it says, oh, you can't delete that one. It's just very obvious what's going on. How many times have you clicked on something to trim, not realizing that you just couldn't trim it, and then you eventually figured it out because it wouldn't let you trim it? This is very obvious right up front. Okay, so that's trim and extend. Let's go into break and make sure my object snaps are off. So here I'm going to select this object to break. Very obvious what's going on, right? Very clear that I need to, oh, maybe that's not what I wanted. I need to do an F for first point. Very clear what's going on. Break, same deal, pick this one, move it down, move it up, whatever. Pretty straightforward. And then match prop, the last one that we're going to do, let's go to match prop. They added a match prop into the MText dialog box, by the way. And let's say I want to match this object. And now you'll see as I move my cursor around, you can see how it's clearly showing me what would change. Just very obvious. Visual, very, very obvious, right? I like that. And then cursor badges, which they did incidentally just add in a system variable in the latest service pack because somebody complained about cursor badges. I think they're kind of nice. You'll see if I select these objects, let's go on the move command. It is definitely being slow. Let's go into the move command, and I grab these objects. I'm just going to pick a random displacement point. So you can see the cursor badge in the upper right-hand corner of the quadrant is telling me I'm doing a move. Very clear. Doing a move. You can also see the objects I'm moving are disappearing. So it's pretty obvious that I'm doing a move, as opposed to a copy. Same deal. I get a different icon, different cursor badge in the upper right-hand quadrant. It seems very clear that the objects that I'm copying stay there. I'm just adding more. Same if I go into rotate. You will see the cursor badge for rotate. Actually, that arrow will change based on the angle that you have for your snap. So some other things to think about. And speaking of snaps, let's go over to this other drawing that I had open. This one. Some other little tiny things that add up. Have you ever tried to fillet a polyline to itself? An open polyline to itself? Because it wouldn't let you do it, right? Called your name, told you you couldn't do it. This is a polyline. Now if I go into fillet and I decide I want to fillet it, not a problem. Lets you do it whether there's arcs or straight lines or whatever. It's happy to do that. Other little things, all the little things that add up, that will just save you a little bit of time. I'm going to turn my OSnap back on. I'm going to go in the line command, and I'm going to zoom in really close on here. Can you see that it will not let me grab the endpoint of that extension line? It will let me grab the corner, but it will not. It lets me grab that end of the extension line, but it will not let me grab the endpoint of the other extension line. How many times have you gone in to try to grab an object and you accidentally hit that dimension, and that messes everything all up? So you don't have to worry about that anymore. Now you can turn that off too if you don't like it. I don't know why you wouldn't want that. couple other things. So if I want to do a continued dimension or a baseline dimension off of this object, I could go in here, I could select this dimension. I like to use those multi-function grips. I already told you I'm pretty lazy. I like to just move my cursor over the endpoint, and then I'm going to select baseline dimension. I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to grab up here. It's not a very good baseline dimension. But I want you to notice the color. Clearly, the style of the baseline dimension, the base dimension, and the continued dimension are different. You would never do that. You always want the dimension style of any continued dimensions or baseline dimensions to always be the same as the base. But if you accidentally forget and don't change your current text dimension style, you're out of luck. So with AutoCAD 2014, they added a new dimension variable because we don't have enough dimension variables. It's on by default, so you don't even have to remember it. I'm going to go ahead and erase that guy. And let's try that again. So I'm going to click on this dimension. I'm going to go ahead and use that. Let's do continue and pull it on up, and you'll see it took a look at the base dimension, and it used the same dimension style. It did not change the current dimension style. It only changed it temporarily to draw that additional dimension. These are little things, once again, but how many times have you had to go back and correct because you forgot to change your dimension style? Little things that add up. Then we'll talk about the big things in just a bit. Do any of you draw in isometric drawing mode? Draw isometric? Any of you? Because I'm not going to go over it. If you don't say yes, I'm not going to show you. Yes, a few of you. So if you want to draw in isometric drawing mode, you have to go into snap. You have to change the style of the snap to isometric, right? And then there's a variety of ways you can change the iso plane. So there's a really nice new tool that they added into AutoCAD 2015. Which drawing was it? It is the one I was just in. This one. If you take a look at this grid right here, you can see that it's definitely just a regular old grid, squared off grid. I'm going to switch it over to isometric drawing. To do that inside of AutoCAD 2015, there's a tool at the very bottom of the screen called Iso Draft. As soon as I click that, you'll see that the grid rotates. You'll see that my cursors rotate, and it did two things at one time. So it changed the style of the snap automatically to isometric, and now I'm in one of the iso planes. If you take a look down here, you'll see that you can easily switch from one iso plane to the other. Maybe I want to go to the right. Maybe I want to go to the top. You can still do it the old way with Control-E or the F5 key. It's completely up to you. But it's just a little bit easier to switch back and forth. So I'm done with it. I'm tired of it. I can click on it again, and it will put it back to the way it was before. That's for those of you who draw in isometric drawing mode. All right, MText. We all use MText. Always want the MText editor to be better. So they made some nice changes to the MText editor. Easy ones, not hard to figure out. Actually, it just makes MText a lot easier to use. And they also added in a new command called text align. We got a whole new command that allows you to very quickly line up text in your drawing file. So let's take a look at MText. You can see I can't live without my sheet sets. I don't know if you use the sheet set manager or not, but I obviously can't live without it. All right, here's some MText. I'm just going to double click on it right now because I just want to point something out. It's going to blow it up really big. But can you see that it's transparent? MText Editor is now transparent, so you can see the objects underneath it, so you'd be able to see if your text was going to land on something, which is kind of nice. Okay, let's zoom in. Double click again, go into MText Editor. Just some basic things. You know, we've made it really complicated to do columns. Now it's easy to do columns. Very simple, very straightforward. You can pull them down here. Whoops. There's that caffeine again. I just got done saying how easy it was. It is actually really easy. You can grab the corner. You can do them both at one time. This probably seems basic to a lot of people, but we haven't had that inside of MText Editor. Let's do a little bit more with the MText Editor. Don't mess with me. If I did a 1 and an open paren like that, and I hit the space bar, AutoCAD automatically assumes, oh, she wants to do some numbering. Line 1, line 2, just a little bit easier to work with. If I hit an extra enter and I do like a 4 and hit the space bar. You have that lovely little lightning bolt, Harry Potter lightning bolt. If you click on that, you see you have some options. You can click start. What number would start do? This is the audience participation part. 1, right? What if I did continue? What would that do? 3, right? Or you could just leave it the way it is and it would continue out of 4. Just some basic, easy things. Same with bullets, actually. Stop it. Do you guys talk to AutoCAD? I know I'm not the only one. It's always wrong. I'm always right, incidentally. If you did something like an asterisk or any character actually hit the space bar, it's going to go, oh, she wants to do some bullets. Just a little bit easier, complete control over what your bullets look like. Some of us like to type. Some of us like to grab off of the ribbon, right? And then, I don't know if you've ever typed in a date and it turned it into a fraction. It's a lot easier to control that now. You will see if I do 1/2, it goes, oh, that's a fraction. But once again, you have a little lightning bolt where you could say unstack if it was really supposed to be a date, or you can switch it over to diagonal. A lot of control over how this works out. Just friendlier, just easier to use. And then we also have, for those of you who wanted subscript and superscript, you'll see that we have superscript, we have subscript. So just some basic things that they've added in. Oh, one of my favorites. Have you ever accidentally had your cap lock on when you started typing in MText? I'll turn my cap lock on. Today. Would there ever be a situation where you'd want a lowercase first character and the rest of it uppercase? Probably not. So now, if I hit the space bar, AutoCAD goes, that's not what you wanted. And it will fix it. And it will turn my cap lock off. So AutoCAD's just getting a little smarter, working, figuring out how we work and adapting accordingly. All right, and then I promised you that new command text align. Make sure I'm in the viewport. Once again, I can tell I'm in the viewport. That makes me so happy. So I am going to, let's go into text align. And still type everything in. Don't be like me, be better than me. And I'm going to select these 3 objects. I want them all lined up. It's a very basic command. Pick the one you want it to work off of. I'll turn my ortho on. And now they're all nice and lined up. Very simple, very straightforward. But let's look at this. All right, if I go into alignment, the alignment option, you can see maybe I wanted them centered. Maybe I wanted them right justified. You have the same control over that you would over text. And more importantly, if you take a look at options, now it kept the same Y for all of those. But maybe I want them to be a specific distance. Or maybe you want it to figure out how to evenly space them. You have a lot of options on there to help you get exactly what you want for aligned text. Geographic location. So there's nothing cooler if you had perhaps you had a floor plan or something or a building than to show your client what it looks like in the real world. This isn't quite, 3D BIM that we talked about. But this allows you to take a map, we use Bing Maps inside of AutoCAD, and show whatever it is you're building, bridge, whatever, how it would look in an actual map. It's very simple to use, that's why I like it. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to use a video just because I'm never really certain on how the wireless is going to go. You can already see it's a little slow. You have to be logged into your A360 account, your Autodesk 360 account, which is free. We didn't really talk too much about Autodesk 360. If you're not logged in, it will tell you need to log in. And yes, we want to use live map data. That means it's going to go out to Bing Maps and it's going to grab the most recent aerial snapshot of any address. So I thought it might be kind of fun to show you Autodesk headquarters. Autodesk headquarters is in a town called San Rafael, just north of San Francisco. I live about 5 minutes from there. So I typed in the address. I'm going to drop the pin right where that address is. And then I can zoom around and take a look at that aerial view. You can see as I zoom in, Autodesk is a very dog-friendly place. The back of Autodesk headquarters actually has a dog park set up specifically for dogs. We're from California, we're into dogs. I don't know what else to say there. But that's actually Autodesk headquarters. You can see the little circle outside for the dog walk. If you want a different kind of view, you want to look at the roadways, you can do that. You can look at it from a bird's eye view. I think that actually gives you the best view. We'll look at that in just a second. And the goal is you're going to drop that pin in one location that you can reference in your drawing file so you can line them all up when you put your floor plan on there. So I moved it a little bit, tried to get it right in the center. Now I don't have a floor plan in this drawing, but if I did, I could drop it right on top of that. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to select a coordinate system. Now, it used to be in previous releases of AutoCAD, the first coordinate system, the first option was pretty much the worst one. Now they've put it in the order of the coordinate systems that would be relevant to the location that you're at. different coordinate systems here than you would have in California. So those of you in GIS totally get that. The rest of us, we're not too sure, so we just picked the one at the top. So let's zoom back in, get a little bit closer. You can see that Autodesk isn't too far away from the San Francisco Bay. One of the things we weren't able to do before, we weren't able to print these. So with AutoCAD 2015, you can actually basically trim it out, any portion of the map that you want. It saves that portion with the drawing file, and then you can print it. So that's been a big improvement. And once again, you can imagine, you can see we're taking a look at the roadways versus the aerial views, or a combination of both. Or if the map's in your way, you can just turn it off, turn it back on anytime that you want to. So now we're going to go ahead and capture a specific area. A couple different ways you can do that. And it doesn't look any different, but you'll actually see if I go to the outside part of the map and I switch the view, let's switch it over to roadways or something like that, it's very clear that I did cut it out. And I could print that, no problem. It won't automatically update that map unless you tell it to. If you make the border bigger than it is, it's going to have to go out and try to find an updated map. If you make it smaller, it doesn't have to. So you have complete control over that. But it's very flexible and is very easy to use. You can control how tight it is. But it would be very impressive for you to be able to put a floor plan on top of an actual position in a map. All right, let's go on. So you heard a little bit about reality capture today. This is a building that's hundreds of years old. It does not have an AutoCAD DWG file to go with it. What if I wanted to make modifications to it? What I wanted to work with it in AutoCAD or Revit or whatever? You can see that this is a point cloud. You heard a little bit about point clouds in the last session. This particular building was turned into a point cloud simply by using a camera. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Pretty impressive. It almost looks like it has textures on there. It looks very vivid and very real. And this can actually, once again, be a DWG file that you can take into AutoCAD. Any of you work with 123D Catch? 123D Catch? You guys should write that down. That's a free program. It's open to, it's in our consumer department at Autodesk. It allows you to use your phone or any camera that you want. It even has an app for the iPhone that allows you to take pictures of anything. Like maybe this bottle is probably a terrible example, but we'll pretend it's not because it's clear, it won't like that. But take pictures of it, and then it will take those pictures together, it will stitch them together and create a 3D model. It's a free application, it's great fun. Your kids will love it if for nothing else. The first thing people seem to do is take a picture of someone's head, turn it into a 3D model, because that's, I don't know, it's fun. Anything you can get to sit still, you can use 123D Catch to do that. That's kind of the amateur version of what we just saw. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So when you loaded AutoCAD or any of the hero products like Civil 3D or Revit or Inventor, you got this program called Recap. And we have it set up so it loads automatically. So if you weren't paying attention, you probably ended up installing it on your computer. And you probably went, what the heck is this? Now I'm going to guess that very few of you work with point clouds. Raise your hand if you work with point clouds. Okay, well, that's actually a pretty good number. Very few people. You'll see, I know that over the years, more and more people are working with point clouds. So as was mentioned in the last session, point clouds can be very, 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 very large. They can be billions of points. And as he mentioned in the last session, if you bring billions of points into AutoCAD or Revit or Civil 3D, do you think that would slow you down? Absolutely. It's great if you get paid by the hour. But if you don't get paid by the hour and you want to really get your job done, then you probably want those point clouds to be sped up. And that's exactly what Recap does. So if I needed to redesign this room, I could, and I don't have a DWG file, I don't have a Revit file, I would have to measure it, right? I'd have to get all the information and measure it, and then I'd have to put it in, we'll say AutoCAD. And I'm lazy, I don't like to do that. Or if I had a 3D scanner, I could put that right in the middle of the room. It would send these rays out to all these lasers out to every lasers for you Austin Powers fans, all the way to all the different walls in the room. And every time it hit anything, it would grab the XYZ coordinate of what it hit. If you were in the room, you would be scanned as well, and you saw that in the last class. Whatever's around is what gets scanned. So all those XYZ coordinates turn into point clouds, which can be very, very big. So Recap takes those point clouds and it tightens them up and it stitches them together into something that you can really bring into AutoCAD or Civil 3D or Revit or whatever and not be slowed down tremendously. So most of us actually start with an empty screen. This happens to be Revit, it could be AutoCAD. That tends to be where we start, nice and empty. But in reality, everything happens someplace in the real world. This happens to be a tech shop in San Francisco, and they took the point cloud, they brought a scanner in, they made a point cloud out of it, and in this case, they brought it into Revit. Could have brought it into AutoCAD. And you can see that now if I wanted to add a wall or a window or something, I could actually work via this point cloud without having to take any measurements at all, because point clouds are super accurate. As I mentioned before, we usually start with an empty page, but in reality, everything starts in an existing environment. So if you take a look at AutoCAD 2013, since we're kind of focused on staying current, versus AutoCAD 2015, on the left, this is what it would look like if you brought in a point cloud, kind of black and white, not very precise. You can only bring in 2 billion points, which sounds like a lot. It's not a lot. Now with AutoCAD 2015, you can bring in over 20 billion points, and it looks much more like the actual object, much more precise. So here we have the same scenario where we have that tech shop. This happens to be in Revit. I'll show you an example in AutoCAD. But just kind of showing you how bringing the point cloud into an existing environment like this and how you can draw from it. So we're going to add in a wall. We're going to add in a door. Nice thing about Revit is you can tell it right off the bat what type of wall and what type of door. We're actually snapping to the point cloud. And we'll take a look at that. It's kind of cut off because the projector and my computer are not agreeing on the resolution. Very fast, very efficient. So one of the reasons that more hands didn't go up is because scanners are expensive. The price of scanners are coming down. They're going to keep coming down. But right now, only the large companies can really afford to own scanners. If you work for a smaller company, you might decide to use a scanner, but you'll probably rent it. Or maybe you'll have someone else do the scan for you. So I talked to you about 123D Catch, one of our consumer products. Pretty low stress, easy product to use. This is also a low stress product to use, but it's much higher density, it's much more professional, and it has a very, very secure cloud part of it, which we don't quite have with 123D Catch. This is the professional version of 123D Catch. So in this situation, all you need to have is a camera. And in this situation, we have a quadcopter there. Is it a quadcopter? Octocopter? Whatever. A drone. And it will actually fly with the camera. And it took pictures all around this building. It's going to make a 3D model of the building. Now, you don't have to have a drone. Most of us don't have those laying around, these fabulous, cool quadcopters that you see. I'm sure I don't know if they have one out here, but they're fascinating. But if you don't have a way to get on top of the building, you won't be able to get the roof. You can see the camera pictures up there, right? You won't be able to get a picture of the top, right? So unless you can maybe stand under the building to get it. So it's just something to think about. But take a look at this. This looks pretty darn amazing. This is a 3D model. And then we're going to actually take this 3D model and we're going to bring it into AutoCAD and we're going to add a second floor. So there are two object snaps inside of AutoCAD that work with point clouds. One of them is node. In case you've ever wondered what the node object snap was in AutoCAD, it snaps to points. And this is perfect for point clouds. It's been in there way before point clouds existed. And the other object snap that was just added allows you to actually grab the surface, the side. You're allowed to grab the planar surface as an object snap just for point clouds. So you can maybe put like a light on the side or of the wall or something like that. Very simple, very straightforward. Here you can see them adding that second floor. The point being, sorry, but you can grab the X, Y, and Z coordinate. And this is where I have sound. If we don't have the sound, it's not the end of the world, but it's way cooler in the next video. So I'm going to cross my fingers. And it's loud. It starts out with no sound, and then it gets really loud. You will all be awakened. We recently worked an alliance out with GoPro. Some of you are familiar with the GoPro technology. And here's a situation. There's actually a bunker in San Francisco that's been sitting pretty much dormant for many, many years. And they were talking about either adding in a restaurant or a building there or doing something with it. So there's no AutoCAD drawing for this bunker. It's a couple hundred years old. And consequently, they wanted to take the lazy route to get the dimensions of it. So let me show you this video. She says, really, after that buildup? There we go. This part has no sound. Either does this part. So you see a little geolocate in there. He happened to use Revit. For those of you who are thinking about moving to Revit, he had used it for 2 whole days before he did that. I mean, you could have done the exact same thing inside of AutoCAD or Civil 3D. So pretty amazing. That's crazy technology. It's crazy going on there. And since very few of you raised your hands, I'm not going to go into detail about the changes to point clouds inside of AutoCAD 2015, but I'll just go with it's better, easier to use. And then I also kind of mentioned this, and this doesn't really matter what release of AutoCAD you're on, as long as you're like in the last 5 releases. I don't know how many of you have been to the Autodesk App Store. Have you been to the App Store, the land of free stuff? I'm going to say last time I was here, I told you about the land of free stuff. So let's just really quickly take a look at that. We love free. Don't we all love free? Of course we do. I want to say that I already opened it up. Because of the internet, I'm afraid to try it again. Let's see, it probably went into Chrome. It did. Doesn't matter whether you're using IE or Chrome. But basically, if you click on that X, I did that way too fast. This X in the upper right-hand corner will take you to the Autodesk Exchange. It's been in the last 3 releases of AutoCAD. You can also go to it directly. So no excuse, even if you're not on the most recent release of the software. Let's go back over here. Like I told you, because it seemed slow, I was hesitant to click on it directly. But basically, you'll see all of these apps. You'll see a bunch of free apps. You'll see featured apps. So some of those are new. Some of them are just apps that they think are really awesome that they're pushing. You'll see that the most downloaded apps, no surprise, are all the free apps. And then you'll see the most downloaded paid apps. They just added that in because the most downloaded apps were always the free ones. So they added in the most downloaded paid apps. Some of them are like $1, you know, US. Some of them are like 100. Some of them are 20. But I bet you, if there's been a command in AutoCAD that you wanted inside of AutoCAD and we haven't put it in yet, you're probably not the only one who thought about that. So a lot of people are just putting apps up there to help make your life in AutoCAD a little bit easier. By default, you'll actually see that AutoCAD comes installed with the SketchUp app, which may sound funny, but we do have a lot of customers who use SketchUp. So we make it really easy for you to bring SketchUp files into AutoCAD. That's automatically installed in 2014 and 15. And you'll see that you can manage all your apps just like you do on your smartphone. So you can get the most up-to-date one, you can uninstall them, and so on and so forth. Very, very easy to work with. I'm going to wrap this up because I know you guys want to go home. So how many of you, when you bought AutoCAD, also bought it with the AutoCAD Design Suite, or any suite of the suite? Okay, am I assuming the rest of you just have regular AutoCAD without the suite? So we have a lot of people who bought the AutoCAD Design Suite. You heard about Robert talking about how to get the most out of their software. They bought the AutoCAD Design Suite, which comes with a bunch of other tools, and they don't use the other tools. So kind of going online with what Robert said earlier, there are software products that come with the Design Suite that are very cool, and if you paid for it, you should definitely use them. I'm just going to do a little plug for them. It'll take 2 seconds. Raster Design. Any of you have hard copies of a drawing and don't have the DWG file to go with it? Especially if it's something old that before AutoCAD existed. Well, you can scan that in. You can take that file into AutoCAD Raster Design, and it will help convert it from raster to vector. Great program, fabulous program. That comes with the AutoCAD Design Suite. Showcase allows you to do super speedy, fast renderings. I like it because it's easy. You don't have to know all about rendering, because I don't know all about rendering, but I can take an AutoCAD drawing file into Showcase, and it makes it look fabulous in no time at all. It's very low stress. It has templates to help you, and it's a very friendly, easy program to use. I'm going to skip over Mudbox. It's a little harder to explain. It's cool, though. Very, very cool. And then depending on which one of the suites you get, you might have also received 3ds Max Design, which is like one of the coolest products ever in the whole entire world, to really get you into those amazing visualizations, including animations. So, did we get the booklets? Did we ever find the booklets, the mystery booklets? What? We'll have them by the end of the session. They're going to magically appear by the end of the session. Sounds like somebody might have left them in the office or something. Somebody went running over to the office. So I do have hard copies for every single one of you of those tips and tricks booklets. I don't want to take any home, so as long as there's enough for everybody, feel free to take more than one if you have a colleague that couldn't make it today. You can also download the PDF for the AutoCAD 2015 booklet, and the 2015 booklet actually contains 2014 and 15 in it. All the new features in 14, all the new features in 2015. And you can download it on my blog as well, autodesk.com/Lynn Allen. And then, I don't know if anyone's talked about this. I didn't go to all the sessions today. I was kind of involved in other things that they had me scheduled for. But one of the things that Autodesk did recently, which I absolutely love, is the ability to kind of rent AutoCAD as you go. Maybe you can't afford to buy the full-fledged program, or maybe you only need an extra seat of AutoCAD for a certain amount of time, or maybe it's just for a specific project. You can actually access AutoCAD on a quarterly basis. You just pay for that quarter. And then if you don't want it anymore after the quarter, you stop paying. You don't use it anymore. It's a kind of a nice program to kind of get you into the market. Same is true with our other programs as well, like Revit or Civil 3D. I just kind of like that. It's also very handy if you have a project where you need to add some AutoCAD seats and you want to be able to charge it back to who's ever paying you for the project. If you have a situation where you're kind of like renting it just for the project, much easier to bill back to the building owner or whatever the situation is. So just something for you to think about. And that's it. That's me. You can follow me on Twitter, Lynn_Allen. And feel free to send me an email. It kind of got cut off, but I bet you can figure it out. Well, it didn't really get cut off. Lynn.allen@autodesk.com. I want to thank you for your time, and I have a feeling we're going to keep tap dancing until the booklets magically show up. I think. Is that right? We have booklets? No, I'm looking over there. No one has booklets. Anyway, don't leave till you get the booklets. All right, well, anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you enjoyed Autodesk University Extension. Thank you.
So thank you, Lynn.